Week one kickoff is minutes away. We're going to talk about it, all that and more, coming up next on Countdown to Sunday. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Countdown to Sunday. I'm your co-host, Brian Bosarge, joined as always by my co-host, Brad Menendez. Brad, we are 40 minutes away, the screen is telling me, from kickoff of the NFL season tonight with the Ravens at the Chiefs. It was supposed to start in 20 minutes, but Mother Nature had other ideas.
She does like to poke her head out in Kansas City, that's for sure. This isn't the first time we've had this kind of weather in the last few years happen at Kansas City. So, which is great for us. We can have a fun show, enjoy the conversation, and get off and watch the game after.
I got to tell you, and I feel like this happens every year, but pretty much anywhere from like Nebraska south in college football, there will be a weather delay in every single college football game that takes place in that area. Because almost every game was delayed at some point or another. It felt like last weekend of the games that I watched.
It is that time of year.
All right. So if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube there and hit that notification bell so you get notified when we go live each and every week here with this wonderful program and our other programs that we have. And always, if you want to subscribe to the channel, we got Brad cranking out the shorts and everything for giving you fantasy advice and all that good stuff. It's been awesome to see. And go ahead and subscribe to our Discord channel. Go to the top right corner of the search bar at draftcountdown.com. There's a link to join the Discord there where we have lively discussions daily about college football, NFL, everything. We'll chat about in there, and follow obviously on the X there as well at Draft Countdown. All right, Brad, big news of the week that we're going to talk about here. A couple of extensions to talk about, and one notable hasn't happened yet. But 49ers extended their their star offensive tackle Trent Williams for a couple of seasons at least. Looks like they just gave him a lot more money and said, just go block, please. And that seems to be what happened. This comes a week after they extended Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, this is one of those things where I wonder what their roster construction, like those conversations about how are we going to build this roster, because they're doling out money to these guys that are, it's just really strange to me. It almost seems like they're kind of grasping to try to, like this move couldn't happen, so we've got to do this, and Trent Williams is getting up there at age. Maybe he plays longer than Tom Brady. I don't see it happening with the position he plays, but what's this guy going? He's either 36 or going to be 37 within the next, few months. So he's definitely one of those guys that's not long for the tooth. They needed to lock him up because you need to protect that blind side. It is what it is. Unfortunately, this time of year, you're just they were kind of behind the gun. If they have Super Bowl aspirations, they needed to get this deal done so he did not miss a snap, because they're getting it right from the ground running. I mean, facing the Jets on Monday night, you need, with the edge rushers they have, you need protection up front, and the line's already got a little bit of questions to it. So I don't blame him for doing it. It's just, it's a lot to take on for a guy his age.
Right. And I mean, we wondered last week what the future of Deebo Samuel holds in San Francisco, and we talked off air just now. Well, the bell's going to toll after this season for Brock Purdy, so you're no longer going to have that. You're no longer going to have a league minimum quarterback that you're paying after this season. So that's going to make for some roster shenanigans this offseason for sure.
I'd say they're going to hope that cap skyrockets next year.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it's going up, 30, 40 million every year. So we'll see. Other extension this week, I believe Pittsburgh extended their star nose tackle Cam Hayward got some money this week too.
Yeah, another one of those guys that, he's such a stalwart in that program that he deserves it, and he's going to earn it, whether he's leader in the locker room, leader on the field. I mean, Cam Hayward just one of those guys that you can, kind of set it and forget it. He's going to start. He's going to be strong. He's going to be a good leader for your team and really help drive that defense forward. And they're going to need to lean on that defense. I mean, Russ Wilson is going to need time to settle in and get used to that offense and what they're trying to do there. So you need guys like Cam Hayward and TJ Watt, some of these other fellows to really step up and help take over things, especially because they're starting in Atlanta. And that is not going to be easy going to Atlanta to beat them.
This time last year, when the Chiefs were opening up on Thursday Night Football, the Bengals decided to drop the Joe Burrow extension just to, I don't know, mess with Kansas City, I guess. So I'm hoping tonight that they'll announce the extension for Jamar Chase. I don't know if it's going to happen tonight or not, but his hold in has seemingly ended as he has practiced the last 2 days. Anticipation is he will play against New England on Sunday. So, Brad, I guess I asked you, do you anticipate that a contract gets done before Sunday with Jamar Chase, or do they just go into the season with him? I mean, he's still under his rookie contract for another 2 years.
I mean, that ownership always terrifies me, right? That's some really strange ownership there in Cincy that they could try to push to make him wait another year, but if they're smart, you lock him up now. I mean, he's arguably the best receiver in football. I mean, whether you're a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase guy, I mean, those are your two top dogs. You're going to have to pay him. So why not get it done now before the wide receiver contracts keep coming due and you have to pay him more and more? I mean, you got to do it.
I agree, but at this point, I'm not sure there's going to be another wide receiver contract that's going to make them have to do anything else. Because, I mean, they've waited now. CeeDee Lamb's got his. Justin Jefferson got his. Those are the guys that you were going to be competing with dollar-wise. Allegedly, he just wants to be paid 1 penny more than Justin Jefferson. So just cut the check, man.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, what are you doing? I mean, it's not like you've been paying a lot of other players. You're going to let T. Higgins walk. I'm fairly confident in that. So why not lock up your other top receiver?
Right. Yeah. So just get it over with. It's going to happen. So just do it.
All right. You bite the bullet now or later. I'm with you.
Let's get to some fun projections here, Brad. We're going to, on this final show before the season starts, we are going to just take a guess here. Who the rookie of the year on offense and defense will be. And I'll start here, and I'm just going to go, I feel easy chalk here. I'm going to go with the number one overall pick. I'm going to say Caleb Williams, Chicago. Chicago's never had a 4K passer. They've never had a quarterback throw 30-plus touchdowns in a season. I think he does both of those in his rookie season. And with the number one pick, extra benefit, I think that makes Caleb Williams for Chicago the rookie of the year on offense.
I won't argue you. I went a different direction just because I figured Caleb was probably going to be your pick. Chicago's defense is really good, and I think that could be the one thing that holds him back. I mean, it sounds like a negative, but holds him back per se because it is such a stingy defense that maybe you don't have to be in such a high-scoring games. Maybe the shootouts don't have to happen. Probably will still because there's some really good offenses they face this year. I went Bo Nix, Denver Broncos quarterback, because I think they're going to have to pass a lot more. I like Bo Nix in Sean Payton's offense. I think he can be the kind of the game manager, but smart with the football decision maker that Payton needs to run that offense. Have a lot of good skill position players. Even if Greg Dulcich doesn't come back to 100%, they still got 3 wide receivers that they can play, multiple running backs that can catch out of the backfield. It feels like as long as Bo Nix doesn't do anything too crazy or get hurt, he should be able to far surpass 4,000 yards passing with Sean Payton. The defense is pretty good. They're in a division where they're going to have to throw a lot, though, so it's going to be a tough one, and that's what made me lean Bo Nix this year.
Yeah, that is a square peg and a square hole right there with Bo Nix and Sean Payton in that offense. I'm with you. I like the projection there. I think Caleb Williams has so many weapons on that offense. It's just going to be it feels like it's just going to be a good time every week. We'll see how it goes. Defensively, I'm going to go with the first defensive player picked in this draft class. And just and this is solely, I just love this guy. I love this guy as a prospect. I think he's going to be a hell of an NFL player. I think the Colts defensive end Latu, I think he can get double digit sacks as a rookie, and I think that would be enough to win the defensive rookie of the year.
Funniest thing was he was the first name I jotted down as I was kind of working through this thought process, but I was like, is this going to be the guy that Brian picks? My only concern is how do they do rotations there? So, with K. Whitty Pay and with Samson Ebicom, like how does he get in? Is he going to be along the line? Are they going to stand him up and let him rush? I mean, if they kind of use him as kind of a chess piece, I think he could definitely see double digit sacks. So I'm 100% with you.
It might be one of those deals where they start off doing like a heavy rotation, and then he's just there. They come to the conclusion that this guy's
their best.
Yeah.
Well, but he's the one edge rusher they have that really does something that the rest can't do. I mean, whether it's bull rush, whether it's a spin move, I mean, his athletic profile, I mean, he really is, got elite tools that I don't think anyone else on that roster has in terms of kind of their pure pass rushers. It's going to show sooner rather than later. It really just depends on how quickly he's picking up that scheme. So I'm with you. I think he could be not only in year one, but long-term be a really nice edge rusher in the league. So I'm with you. I went a different direction though. I went with arguably one of our favorite corners in the draft. I think everybody loved him coming out. Quinyon Mitchell went to Philly. I think it's a great spot to get a lot of action. And looking through the history of kind of the defensive rookies of the year, you see a lot of outside linebackers and corners kind of become those guys. So when I was trying to narrow it down, I was like, well, I don't really see a linebacker that's going to step up and truly be that kind of game changer from day one. But corner, I do. They have veterans in Darius Slay and Bradbury, and they have guys that teams may not want to throw at immediately, so they may go after Quinyon Mitchell, give him an opportunity for some interceptions, maybe some good pass breakup numbers, things like that. Plus, he's just aggressive enough that maybe you get some sacks thrown. I mean, he has enough of a skill set where maybe they put him as the nickel, maybe they flex him, and do some different things with him. So he's one of those guys where it's like, if it's not Latu, I think it could be Mitchell just because of the flexibility, and he's a ball hawk. I mean, this guy's gonna do some things in the league, and based on who he's playing, there'll be plenty of interceptions.
Yeah, I love Quinyon Mitchell, so I'm not gonna fight you on that at all. So our rookie of the year predictions on offense, I took Caleb Williams, Brad took Bo Nix. On defense, I took Latu, and Brad took Quinyon Mitchell. So we'll see how that goes for us. All right, it's going to be our weekly Who's the Best on the Wire, and we'll basically look at this in a standard 10 to 12 team league. Brad, I'm not sure why you would be hunting quarterbacks at this point, but if you are, who are the quarterbacks that you'd be hunting on that wire right now?
If you're hunting quarterback right now, then what did you just do in your draft? Right. In looking at this, I was kind of looking at Yahoo and ESPN and looking at, kind of rostered percentages, availability percentages. And the two guys that I think have kind of the most opportunity to make fantasy production weekly would be Bryce Young and Bo Nix. When you look at ESPN and Yahoo, they're both owned in less than 20% of leagues. They're on teams that are going to have to pass a lot to stay in the games. Carolina, their defense isn't great, so Bryce Young may have to throw a ton. I like Dave Canales a lot, like we mentioned in last week's show. So I think both of these guys could be players that you could pick up off the wire. I'm presuming that most of these leagues are probably one quarterback. Superflex leagues, it's going to be a completely different ball of wax. So I'm looking at those two at the quarterback position.
Running back, I actually added one of the guys you have here this week because I took advantage of our league's IR rules and moved Hollywood Brown to the IR spot when he was declared out for tonight. And I added Jaleel McLaughlin from Denver to my roster. I'm not going to play him, but I added him, to the back end of the roster. But you had him, and I think we had talked about a couple of weeks ago, Chuba Hubbard, the Carolina running back as well. So talk to me about those two guys.
Yeah, the interesting thing is Javonte Williams is such a fun running back in Denver, but Sean Payton loves McLaughlin. So he continues to talk him up. He continues to use them in a variety of ways. We know Sean Payton loves to deploy multiple running backs. He last year produced very well. And he's owned in less than, I thought his roster ownership was 52% or less in both ESPN and Yahoo. It's just so weird at see him sitting out on waiver wires right now just because of how he was used last year. And there's no reason they won't use him very similar role this year. You know, I know they've drafted running back Audric Estime, but he's a different kind of running back. McLaughlin does things that the other two don't, especially in the passing games. I went McLaughlin just because he should be rostered in close to 100% of leagues. And then Chuba Hubbard, much the same. He's more, if he's available, he really should be on your roster.
Yep, I agree. Like I said, I added McLaughlin this week because of some of the reasons you said. It just basically I did it to keep him off everybody else's team for now. So I mean, take advantage of the rules is the way I look at it. Who are some wide receivers? I feel like we've talked about one of these guys already, but who are some wide receivers that you might be taking looks at this week?
Yeah, for me, it was Curtis Samuel, just because Buffalo's still trying to figure out. But they need pass catchers. Curtis Samuel's a veteran, can do some different things, very fast. So it makes sense to just take a shot if you need some depth at receiver. Same with Josh Downs. Josh Downs from the Colts. Both guys are under 60% ownership in most of the major platforms. So these are two guys that you can roster and see what happens. Their teams are going to need to pass a bunch, and they're arguably number one or number two on their team.
Yeah. Josh Downs is interesting because of the injury history a little bit, right? He's had some issues there, but the Colts, am I wrong in thinking they lack a true number one here?
I mean, I guess it depends on how you view.
Well, no, I'm sorry, I forget about Pittman. I'm sorry. So you're right. He could be their number two though for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean Pittman they flex around a lot though. They like to play him as kind of the big slot. So Josh Downs plays mostly outside and a little bit on the inside as well. So it's 1A and 1B.
All right. So this one actually could be relevant to a lot of people listening, is because sometimes you wait too long to get the tight end and you might be needing some guys. So who are a couple of tight ends that can get you some good point production in week one if need be?
Yeah, you know, in the tight end position, if you can get around 9+ points, you've got tight end one type production in fantasy football. So for me, it's Juwan Johnson from the Saints. Who else are they going to throw the ball to after Chris Olave, right? Rashid Shaheed is a smaller guy, not as dependable, especially as you get closer to the red zone. Juwan Johnson is a guy they like in their system. They continue to bring him back and let him be kind of their top tight end. If he's available, you should grab him. These guys were on what's their roster ownership? 20% or less. Sorry, I was trying to process in my brain. 20% or less on ESPN and Yahoo. Juwan Johnson and then Chig Okonkwo, who's from the Titans. Not as intriguing as an option, but he's a more athletic player than Juwan Johnson. So if Tennessee kind of turns into one of those teams where Will Levis has to trust the check down and really look to safety blanket, tight end's going to be it, and that's going to be Chig. So both of these guys are guys that I would definitely be rostered just because they have potential every week to get you, 3, 4, 5 catches and 50 to 70 yards receiving. And then if they sprinkle in a touchdown, you've got mid tight end one type production that week.
Why'd you mention Rashid Shaheed? Because he strikes me as the kind of guy who's either he's going to score you 23 or 3, and there really isn't no in between.
That's why I don't roster him, because he's really hard to predict, which matchup is really going to be good for him. And it's not that he's a bad player. It's just the way that they utilize him. It's hard to trust him. I mean, you trust Chris Olave, you trust the running back. I tend to trust the tight end in New Orleans and expect those three to be productive. But outside of that, I mean, if you told me Bub Means was their number 3 receiver, yeah, I mean, like, okay. I mean, why not?
Oof. Old Mickey. I thought this was an interesting question. I'll put, when do you start putting out trade offers? Like, as soon as your draft is over, when is Brad throwing out trades?
Whether it's redraft or dynasty, I'm always trying to trade. Like, if whether it's due to injury or I just don't like the depth in a position, I'm always sending out trade offers, talking to owners and seeing kind of what they think about their roster, what they need help in. Maybe I can improve a position. I mean, I made 2 trades happen this morning in dynasty leagues just because I wanted to improve a position. So I never stop. I mean, there should always be conversations being had.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to like always keep the one league I'm in, there's not a whole lot of trade action that happens. So I'm constantly the bottom spot on my bench every week. I'm pretty much churning it once a week, either on the waiver wire or after waivers are over. I'm trying something new just to see if something sticks. And sometimes it burns me and I end up losing a guy that goes on to have a good season. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I find that guy. So like I said, trading's not really, a big thing in my league, but if you're in one of those leagues that have a lot of fun, trade, I'm like you, I'd be trying to trade all the time.
Yeah. Even the quieter leagues, I still try to send out offers and try to talk to other owners because you never know. But yeah, I'm with you. I have a few leagues where nothing happens and you're like, ugh, you better draft well.
Right. Exactly. All right. Final segment of the show this week, Brad, will be our eliminator picks. And for those unfamiliar with how eliminator works, it's basically you get a just large group of people, be it online or wherever. You pick one team to win straight up in the NFL every week. And standard rules, you can't pick the same team twice. So once you pick that team in week 1, even if you go the distance throughout the whole season, you can't pick that team again. So you almost at some point, if you survive 9 or 10 weeks, which most people don't, but if you do, then you start having to strategize a little bit. Like, do I want to use the Chiefs this week, or do I need to hold them for later on just in case? Or do you want to use them early and get it over with? So that becomes the strategy part of it. But I'm going right out of the loop here. I'm going Homer. I'm going the biggest favorite in the NFL this week. The Bengals, last I looked, were 8.5-point favorites at home to New England. They're orange everything this week: orange helmets, orange shirts, orange pants, orange socks, orange shoes, orange in the crowd. It's going to be great. I think they're going to beat New England because New England maybe has the worst roster in the league. The Bengals have arguably a top 5 roster in the league. I think this is not going to be close.
I mean, the only way they keep the game close is if New England basically just runs the ball and drains clock as much as possible.
Right.
I'm with you. I mean, in my home eliminator league, I picked Cincinnati this week just to say it, but I'm with you. I'm always strategizing this. So picking Cincinnati this early feels very dangerous because that's a really good roster, especially as you get later in the year.
Right.
So I had that thought and even picked them in my home league, but I wasn't going to do that twice. So I went a different direction. I went with probably the weirdest game of the week. I went Raiders over Chargers, mostly because, the Chargers roster is just so, I mean, they've got a bunch of guys that are dinged up. They're trusting running backs that are arguably already hurt in Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, who inevitably is going to get hurt. You're trying to figure out what you have at receiver. You got rid of Keenan Allen. Like there's just so many question marks on this roster. I went with the Raiders, who look like one of the stronger defenses in the league, and hoping that this thing's low scoring. Maybe we get lucky and Minshew magic happens on the field and I get a Raiders win.
It's a bold one right out of the gate. I like it.
Plus I get rid of the Raiders, so I don't have to worry about them later.
That's true. That's true. Tampa Bay was another one that was brought to my attention this week.
Jaden Daniels, yeah.
Yeah, as a potential one for the eliminator. So,
well, and looking at it, I thought about, I was like, oh, let's look at who the rookie quarterbacks are facing. It's like, well, Denver's got Seattle. I mean, that could be a game that could go either way. It's kind of a toss-up, Caleb Williams has Tennessee. I think people are kind of underestimating Tennessee. I know I'm not a huge Levis guy, but Levis the way that offense is set up, you know their offensive coordinator very well. He knows how to work with those young quarterbacks. I mean, like, it was just too scary of a game. I was like, I'll let somebody else pick on that one. I'll just go with Vegas.
Ooh, that's like I said, that's very bold. All right, that's going to do it for tonight's edition of Countdown to Sunday. We've done eliminatory picks. We've given you fantasy advice. Before we get to final thoughts, what's your prediction for tonight's game?
Ooh, it's going to be ugly. There's going to be a lot of rushing going on. I'm still leaning Baltimore. Probably something in the realms of 24-21. I mean, it's going to be a lot of running, I got to think, depending on how they take care of that field out there. With as much rain as was coming down, it's going to be a tough one. But I trust Baltimore running the ball more than I do Kansas City.
I'm going to go the other way. I think Kansas City wins this one. I'm going to say 20-10. I'm with you. I think the scoring kind of stays a little low. It didn't hit me. Kansas City's got to open up with Baltimore, and then they get Cincinnati next week.
It's a bit of a murder.
Tough sledding there.
Detroit's in the same boat. Detroit gets both playoff games they had last year in LA and then Tampa Bay. So it's one of those where it's just a weird early start to the season for some of these teams that are projected to be, Super Bowl hopefuls.
Yep. So we're going to sit back. We're going to enjoy college football week 2. We're going to enjoy NFL week 1. And until next time, follow me on Twitter at Deep Fried Draft. Follow Brad at RotoHeat Brad. Follow Draft Countdown at Draft Countdown. And go to draftcountdown.com for your daily draft needs. For Brad, I'm Brian. Good night, everybody.